Hey everyone, I'm Jake, and this is Don't Stop You'll Die Devlog 9. It's been a while since my last devlog, and I've been busy chipping away at the game, slowly rebuilding it using top-down engine. Over the past few months, I've spent some time adding content and balancing the game. More recently, I've started adding brand new items, and after working on that, I wanted to pivot to work on something different, a brand new boss fight. Now, for those who played the demo at the Game Expo back in March will know that there was a boss fight in the game then, the Arbiter. It was a pretty low level, hacked together boss fight that was essentially just a harder enemy or mini boss that I literally added the week before the expo for the sake of having a boss fight in the demo, and it sucked. On top of that, I've started working on a new area, as trying to create art for Limbo was causing me to crash out a little bit. So I switched it up to a different circle of hell. This time we're focusing on gluttony. So I decided that the first boss for this level will be Cerberus. So I started planning out the attack patterns, and this is what I was thinking. During the first phase, each head will take turns shooting projectiles at the player, each head spitting a different projectile type. For example, the first head could shoot a projectile that deals fire damage over time to the player, the middle a homing projectile, and the third a poison damage over time. In the second phase, the heads will ground pound, and upon hitting the ground send a shockwave of projectiles out. And phase 3 would essentially be phase 2 with a little more aggression. It's nothing crazy, but I wanted a boss with a simple pattern that was somewhat difficult, so I jumped in and started prototyping. I started off by creating the game object and setting up the necessary top-down engine specific AI components, then started coding. I created the base Cerberus script. This pretty much handled the health and individual heads, and a bit of initialization code as well, for all the references that needed to be acquired during runtime. I then got the health hooked up and working roughly with a health bar, before getting into the meat and potato of the code, the attack phases. This was pretty straightforward to get working. The trickiest part of the first phase was ensuring that it worked correctly even if the player had destroyed one or multiple of the heads during the phase, so I had to take that into consideration. I pretty much mapped out all of the phases and at what percentage of health they would run at, and then started working on the code for phase 1. Currently, as there is no art or animation, each head will flicker red before shooting, just as some visual feedback for the player, but this will be replaced with animations when the time comes. Lastly, and I didn't really need to do this just yet, but I decided to add a little UI intro sequence for the fight, which would say the character's name versus Cerberus. The health bar would fade in and the fight would begin, and for some reason this was such a nightmare to get working. I ran into so many issues, but I got there in the end. I then kept expanding upon the Cerberus projectiles, giving them the ability to deal typed damages to the player, like the fire and poison damage over time I mentioned earlier, as well as the option for homing projectiles. This required a little bit of a rework as the heads could only shoot one projectile type, but this was the result. It was a bit of a pain to get the damage types working, but I was able to look through the documentation and example scenes to get it working. It's definitely not balanced, but I'll get around to that once the boss fight is complete and I can fine tune everything at once. At this point I switched it up to one of my favourite parts of the creative process, the art. I booted up Procreate and threw in some reference images from different mythologies as well as from the PS3 game Dante's Inferno, and got to sketching. And after a few hours, this is the design I landed on. So I lined and coloured this bad boy, making sure to separate the layers correctly, imported that into Unity, and this is what we're left with. There's just something about adding art that makes the boss feel so much more alive. I set up the sprites in Unity and tested it out. And while we're on the topic of visuals, there was one more thing I wanted to sort out, the camera. Currently it's still zoomed in quite a bit, which is fine for general gameplay, but for the boss I want you to be able to see more of the playable area. So I utilised top-down engine Cinemachine zones to have the camera zoom out when entering the boss room and then zooming back in when exiting, and it's looking so much better. At this point in classic Jake fashion, I got a bit too locked in and didn't record phase 2 or phase 3 development. This was a few days of work and a few hundred lines of code, but here it is. I did slightly change the phases to what I had originally planned out, but it's looking and feeling really good. And that's it, the first new boss for Don't Stop You'll Die. So much work went into this one and I'm so proud of how it looks. Obviously it's still not finished as I'll have to add all of the animations in, but that's for future Jake to worry about. Anyway, that's all for this video. If Don't Stop You'll Die looks like a game you'd enjoy, the Steam page is live, so a wishlist would be really appreciated. If you enjoyed, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.